big thing is that a lot of times people are performing a measurement already in their environment. They're performing some type of assessment, and in doing that, a lot of times it gets to a place where when you go to really do one that's usable, as we talked about in the session, they're like, we already did it. Right? So one of the techniques that we often recommend to people is first to actually call it a benchmark and not an assessment. It's a little bit more kind of just a measurement and not an assessment. Further, the thing that was done prior is usually called an assessment, so it helps show that delineation. The key is that you do need to perform a measurement that accomplishes three primary things. The first thing is that anything on your network across your health system, you need to make sure that it's measured, regardless of political constraints or whatever the case may be. And sometimes that's hard because you have varying locations, you have varying political structures in the organization that'll enable you to do that measurement. But it doesn't matter. If it's on your network, it can bring you down from a security perspective, so you at least need to look at it from that view. The next really critical item is that you really need to have the appropriate scope for that measurement. So by having the appropriate scope, you need to be able to really, I always say, look across all of the security domains, 50 miles wide and a couple miles deep, so that you can have a good framework of truly what's going on. And then the third thing is that it must be timely. Meaning that if you perform one measurement or had an assessment done over here, and then you had another one over here 3 years ago and another one over here 6 years ago, you need to make sure that they're actually all level set and still accurate. Usually, if you perform that additional measurement, it'll allow you to level set everything time-wise. That's crucial as well. The good news about all three of those things is they can be controlled by the assessor, the person actually doing the measurement. So the biggest thing that I usually tell people in terms of getting that by management is tell them you're doing a benchmark and then don't tell them. Perform it the appropriate way. Call it a benchmark because it's usually a little easier, but make sure it has those attributes which are all fully controllable. And it's kind of like just do it and ask for forgiveness later. In any situation, you have to do that data or that type of review in order to get to the place that we talked about today in the session. There's no other way I found to do it. So sneak it by the sneak it by management is the best way to do it. Yeah, so a lot of times people really view success in security or as a security leader as implementing effective security across the organization. If I would have done that, if that was my view of success in being a security leader, I would have cannonballed off a pier a long time ago. There's many constraints that can impact your ability to being successful in a security setting. If you ask me, success is appropriately telling the story of what management should do so they can make informed decisions. If they make cuckoo decisions, it's on them. And so for me, if I know that I've presented that information to them in that way, I've done my job, I feel like it's success. Sure. So the CISO handbook really talks about many of the steps that are required to build an effective security program. The kind of end state of that is really to get the right budget, which we talked about today. But really, building a core program is effectively enabling your environment to do really four things. The first is to set an appropriate benchmark for security in your environment. Really, what should you measure against? What's appropriate? Which might be different from one organization versus another. The next thing is the ability to, we've talked about it a lot, appropriately measure your environment on a repeatable basis. The third thing that a security program should do is translate gaps from your measurement against your benchmark 1 and 2 into information that can be viewed by management so that they can make informed decisions, even if that decision is to do nothing. And then the fourth thing is to appropriately support the business in implementing those decisions. If they want to support the right security program and say, go build it, then you help them build it. So what the CISO handbook does is it walks through that methodology and how you get from having absolutely nothing and being really tactical to having that repeatable system that can do those 4 things. We've also just recently built on that and are releasing a security program health system framework, which is even a step further, is every single step that you need to do to get to what I just described. It's it's even more prescriptive than the CISO handbook, which we've always wanted to build a book that was prescriptive there too, but we've really got it to a place where it's directly customized to a health system. The core of Auxilio is really helping optimize processes in healthcare, and specifically in providers. That's what Auxilio is all about. Any of those processes that cross across the entire business, Auxilio is there, and it's delivered through strong soft skills and service delivery. It really breaks into 2 buckets. The first bucket is managed print service, which is really hard copy paper and making that efficient, which a lot of times people think, that's just printers, but really printers are across every aspect of a hospital. If that printer doesn't print right in the emergency room, someone dies. It's really across the entire environment and making it efficient. On the other side of the business, really the core area is our security, another element that crosses an entire hospital. And in that, we really provide overall security program development services. It's really been something that we've been in for a long time. We have some automation technology that automates some of the key steps within a security program. Incident management and forensics. You can't be in healthcare these days without helping hospitals with that for sure. And then assessment services. And the differentiation in our assessment services is that it does many of the things that I've talked about today. It has those additional functional requirements that really help you get to that next place so that you can actually do something with the data back from that assessment.